Consider, in 30 years, maybe 40 or 50, experts predict the oil and natural gas on this planet will have faded into the past as the prime fuels of our civilization, and our lives will have changed as a result. Between then and now, we must make the transition into a new energy world. 30 years, maybe 40 or 50. Energy crisis? Most of the time you wouldn't know it by looking around you, but it's just below the surface of normal life, simmering, waiting, until suddenly it erupts and nobody can ignore it. What triggers it? It might be war and politics in the Middle East producing fuel shortages at home. Remember the gas lines of 1973 and 74? It might be winter and cold without relief, draining our supplies of oil and gas. The winter of 77, one of the coldest in history. Factories and schools shut down by fuel shortages, unemployment, energy emergencies declared in some states. Or the winter of 78, with a critical coal shortage and the worst blizzards in a century slamming the Northeast and Midwest, leaving in its wake record amounts of snow, stranded motorists, and power blackouts. Between eruptions, we forget. Awareness fades away. Who wants to remember the frustrations? So we erase it from our minds. The point is, the hidden energy crisis we've been warned about is no longer unseen. It is here. It is now.
With the exception of preventing war, this is the greatest challenge that our country will face during our lifetime. The energy crisis has not yet overwhelmed us, but it will if we do not act quickly. It's a problem that we will not be able to solve in the next few years, and it's likely to get progressively worse through the rest of this century. We must not be selfish or timid if we hope to have a decent world for our children and our grandchildren. We simply must balance our demand for energy with our rapidly shrinking resources. By acting now, we can control our future instead of letting the future control us.
As President Carter has pointed out, there are 3 things we must do to avoid the danger. First, improve energy efficiency and productivity. Second, shift away from oil and gas to other sources of energy. And third, encourage production of energy here in the United States.
The heart of our energy problem is that we have too much demand for fuel. It keeps going up too quickly while production goes down. And our primary means of solving this problem is to reduce waste and inefficiency. The 2 areas where we waste most of our energy are transportation and our heating and cooling systems. Transportation consumes 26% of all our energy, and as much as half of that is waste. We simply must save gasoline. And I believe that the American people can meet this challenge.
That means building and buying more fuel-efficient vehicles and driving them efficiently. Building and using energy-efficient mass transit systems for commuting and long-distance travel. And sharing the ride towards our energy future with carpooling and van pooling. Many individuals and companies are already doing it. Bob Owens of 3M.
Well, we have now over 1,100 employees here at 3M Center of van pooling, which represents about 11 to 12% of our employment. And we have an additional 22% of our employees carpooling. So we have well over a third of our employment here at 3M Center now in some form of shared ride. The success as far as the company is concerned is quite obvious. We've been able to solve our congestion problem during the peak periods and solve our parking problem, which was getting quite severe in the late 60s and early 70s. So from a monetary standpoint for the company, it's been quite successful. And then, of course, the employees, I think, are great benefactors because they've got a better and a cheaper and a more convenient way to get to and from work. If this idea was adopted on a large scale, the savings would be quite great indeed. Now there's about 150 companies or organizations in the U.S. that have van pooling programs.
More passengers per vehicle, more miles per gallon. This kind of efficiency is the goal of engineers working on a new engine design at the Sandia Laboratories in Livermore, California, a federally sponsored research project. Bill Robinson.
This engine is called a variable displacement engine. This engine works by changing its stroke and hence its displacement to match the driver's requirements on the road. When the driver requires low power to cruise down the road, the stroke of the engine is small and the engine is very efficient. When the driver needs to accelerate or needs high power to avoid an accident, the stroke is increased, the power output is increased. Such engines are at least 6 or 7 years from practical reality on American roads.
Conservation is a key part of our national energy plan, and major savings will result from organized, large-scale conservation efforts. Case in point, a Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company plant in Akron, Ohio. This plant turns excess steam into electric power. Terry Helms of Goodyear.
The steam is used in the manufacture of tires, and the requirement is for 200 pounds pressure in the plant. It's produced from the boilers at 900 pounds pressure, and instead of running it through a reduction system, it's run through turbine generators to produce electricity, arriving at the plant at precisely the right requirements. And in the course of that, 75% of the power requirements of the Akron complex, Goodyear's complex, are satisfied.
Efficiency, less waste. These are the bywords of our new energy policy. And retrofit is another. Mike Sizemore, an architectural engineer.
Well, retrofit is another buzzword that goes along with energy generally. And what it refers to is retroactively fitting up an existing building to make it energy efficient. And there are any number of modifications that may be used for this, ranging from mechanical devices to modifying the building walls or adding insulation, or any number of opportunities that you can take advantage of. Our firm was chosen to do the energy-conscious redesign or retrofit of this particular building. The building is only 4 years old. It was designed by some very fine architects, and there can be no question that it's a very good building. It was designed very well. But it does represent a state-of-the-art where we were 4 years ago, and the American Institute of Architects has recognized that times and energy costs have changed, and we are trying to act accordingly. In the analysis of this building, one of the most conspicuous things we're doing is we've redesigned the entire lighting system, so rather than having a ubiquitous grid that stretches on in the ceilings of this office space, we have lights over individuals' desks. And as a result of this, we're projecting an enormous savings. Combined with several other modifications, we're coming up with about a 52% reduction in energy consumption and a payback period of less than 2.5 years. And so we can't resist asking, if a good building can have savings like this produced, what can be done with the mass of the poorer buildings in the United States with a serious conservation program? and being approached comprehensively as we approach it.
Conservation alone won't get us to the energy crunch ahead. We must turn increasingly to a fuel that lies virtually beneath our feet, in quantities so vast that it could power our economy for hundreds of years to come. That fuel is coal. Over 200 billion tons of coal are mineable now at today's prices with today's technology. Converting our factories and utilities over from burning oil and natural gas to burning coal will be a long and very expensive job. But it will enable us to reserve that oil and gas for more important uses in homes and transportation. But at the same time, we must expand and improve our technology to ensure that coal can be burned cleanly and efficiently. Nothing will be gained if we solve our energy problems only to create a new set of environmental problems in their place. One answer is to wash coal before burning it. Another solution is to use scrubbers, expensive mechanical systems that remove most of the sulfur and ash from coal smoke. And precipitators, which trap almost all the minute particles carried in the exhaust smoke. And there is an even brighter potential for coal. We're learning to gasify it, to produce a clean-burning replacement for natural gas. And we can liquefy coal to produce a petroleum-like substance for gasoline, medicines, plastics, and countless other products. And there is yet another promising fuel, oil extracted from shale. Huge amounts of oil are trapped in the shale formations of our western mountain ranges. Harry Forsheimer talks about one process.
As a matter of fact, it's been calculated that in the tri-state area of Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming, there are 1.8 trillion barrels of oil in place, and that the recoverable oil from those deposits is probably of the order of 600 billion barrels. Now, this is more oil here in these deposits that is calculated to be recoverable than the proven oil deposits of the entire world.
This is how it works.
The shale is mined and crushed and is put into the top of the retort by a conveyor. There is a fire going on in the middle of the retort. This generates hot gases which heat the rock above it and drive off the oil before that oil gets to the fire in the retort. In general, the oil is not of as high a quality as much of the naturally produced crude oil. Although it's low in sulfur, it's high in nitrogen. And this creates some problems in the refining process, but they are problems that technology is able to overcome.
Most likely, shale oil won't be flowing freely until well past 1985. There are a number of extraction processes, but they are still too costly to be competitive. Some require lots of water, often a problem in the arid West. Other environmental impacts have yet to be fully measured. Another source of energy lies beneath our feet. In a very few areas of the world, the natural heat of the Earth's core can be tapped to generate electricity. At the geysers in Northern California, dry, superheated steam under high pressure drives turbines. Geothermal power from the geysers now provides half the power for the San Francisco area. Other geothermal sites are promising if the engineering problems can be resolved. One energy idea that is here today is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, a stockpile of oil stored in underground caverns called salt domes. These reserves are like money in the bank, to be drawn on when needed. Maurice Graber, the Department of Energy.
The cavern beneath us will hold about 16 million barrels of oil. The 5 caverns on this complex will store about 60 million as they now exist. The major purpose of the oil storage program is to stockpile a reservoir of oil which will be available in case a shortage develops for any reason. If the need arises for the oil to be used, it will be forced out of the caverns by the injection of a freshwater pressure and the oil distributed through a pipeline and dispensed then through the country.
Nuclear power, the energy we dreamed of when we learned to split the atom. It was a great hope and still is, but right now nuclear plants account for only 12 to 13% of the electricity we generate. There are tough environmental and safety issues that must be settled before nuclear power can realize its full potential. In our search for a better, cleaner, cheaper energy, one that cannot be embargoed and one that is universally available, we're also looking to the sun, solar energy. Little more than a scientist's pipe dream a few years ago, is rapidly becoming available to homeowners and businessmen from Maine to Arizona. Richard Crowther, architect.
Solar energy is a necessity. From an economic standpoint, we cannot afford not to use it. The sun's energy, for all practical purposes, is limitless. The other stores of energy from the earth, such as fossil fuels and nuclear, and these forms of energy are limited and in short supply, and are becoming increasingly expensive to either extract or utilize. This is a solar energy conservation house that we designed for Wyoming. This particular face is due south. These are airtight solar collectors with a gravel storage bin, which is down in the center of the house. The south facade, the south face, receives the winter sun, but the summer sun does not enter because of the higher angle of the sun during the summer months.
From plans and models to reality. But what does a solar system cost and how practical are they right now? George Hunter.
Solar systems are practical today. Solar domestic hot water systems in particular. Solar heating systems are a lot more expensive and in some cases can be made practical if one uses ingenuity. For example, if you can connect to the storage tank, the solar storage tank, another source of heating that storage tank, such as a wood-burning stove like I'm sitting on, then you can reduce the number of collectors and you can provide 20, 30,000 BTUs of heat to the storage tank with another form of energy, such as wood. Well, I think today, without question, domestic solar hot water systems are becoming very popular. We're having 2 and 3 architects a week who are coming in who are including the solar hot water systems in their current plans. I guess the biggest change in solar that I've seen over the past couple of years is that some larger manufacturers are coming into the business, and they are coming out with systems rather than a collector from this person and controllers from someone else. They are putting together the total package, which makes it quite nice for a retail store like ours.
Older homes can be retrofitted with solar collectors, and entire new developments are being designed and built with solar heat and hot water systems right from the start. And solar scientists are looking to the sun for energy on an industrial scale. Sun power is being realized here, an experimental solar-powered irrigation system near Willard, New Mexico, the first large-scale effort to use solar energy to pump water from a well to the fields where it is needed. Welcome to the world's largest solar energy installation, a 5-megawatt test facility at Albuquerque, New Mexico, run by Sandia Laboratories. Tomorrow's solar electric power plant is in its infancy here, the early design and development stage of a power system that may one day replace fossil fuel burning plants. Mirrors follow the sun, concentrating its rays on a boiler to produce high-pressure steam, which could turn electric generators. As we move into our energy future, we'll be expanding the search for new supplies of fossil fuels, oil, gas, and coal. And we'll be perfecting the use of other energy sources: nuclear, oil shale, geothermal, and solar energies. We'll be working on new ways to conserve energy and use it more efficiently. The less people spend on energy, the more they'll have for other things. But all these programs, all our natural resources, all our technical knowledge, all this is not enough. We will fail to fully solve our tremendous energy crisis unless we, as a people, muster the greatest resource we have: our national sense of unity and purpose.